Hey everybody, so you want to learn some Kibana 8? Let's do this thing. So this is the first video in a series of Kibana 8 training. In this one we're going to be talking about the data view and discover tab within Kibana. There is a GitHub page which has all the resources associated to these lessons. So basically the objectives, the steps and the mapping and also the data that you need to run through these lessons. So as I said, this is the first one. We're going to be talking about loading data into Elasticsearch through Kibana, modifying the default data view, which is the new name for index templates within Kibana, formatting the data for display, using the discovery tab, and performing various searches. So that's the objectives, and the steps that we're going to run through, they're all here on the GitHub page. And I'll be using that to produce this video. So when you load up Kibana, and yeah, you need obviously an Elasticsearch cluster and Kibana instance to run through this training. I recommend just going to Elastic Cloud and signing up for a 14-day trial. So let's go upload a file, and we've got a new line delimited JSON file within the GitHub repo that we can use of top selling books from Wikipedia. So we open that up, we give the index a name, and then we just want to change the mapping. So the default mapping that this import utility is pretty good, but we just want to make a few little tweaks to that. So we'll pop in the one from the GitHub page, which is the top selling books data mapping, and then we'll click import, and that data will then, if we scroll down, all get beautifully loaded into Elasticsearch through Kibana. So it's all just stored in the back end now already with those settings and mappings that we just configured. So we could just go into the Discover tab and start analyzing that data, but we want to make a couple of changes to the data view. So we'll go into data view, and this basically is in the section, so stack management section of Kibana, and it basically allows you to set how fields are displayed and to add scripted fields and do other things like that. So we are going to make one change here, which is this year first published field. It is a date, but what we want to do is change that date format to just be a date. So it looks a lot better. So we hit save, so that's made one small change to the field formatting, and we're going to add a scripted field, which just allows us to do a Google search of each book name. So it's a string and it's a URL. We want to open up a string and a URL. We want to open up a new tab, and the template we're going to use is just here, which is basically just hitting the Google URL, and the name, the label that we're going to provide is search, and the script to go and get the value we want is book.keyword. So what it's telling Kibana is every time we're displaying a document, go and get the book.keyword and give me a link for Google search to perform a search for that book name. So we'll go to create field, which is all good. So that's made these changes in this data view section. Now if we go here to the Discover tab, we'll see that additional field added. And yeah, so for example, this is the main analysis, kind of basic analysis space within Kibana. So yeah, so for example, the Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone. So if you just click the search link there, we'll go and do a Google search and get that information back. So it's just like a way you can do some sort of quick integration at the front end with Kibana. But this is really difficult to see, right? It's all sort of free texty, which is good in some ways, but yeah, it's also a bit hard to read. Much easier to look things as sort of a bit of a table format. So let's get the book. Oh, what's happening here? Yep, so we'll get the book, get the author. I think it's a bit slow for my PC. Get the language, first published, the year published, millions of sales, and the Google search. So get like a table, so much nicer. So now that we've got that information stored or presented in a bit of a nicer way, so we can save that. So this can be our book saved search. So if we wanted to, we can come back and see that information presented in that way. So now let's jump into some different types of searches. So I guess firstly, the example that we provide here is if we search for J.K. Rowling's, we get J.K. Rowling's, which is great, but we also get D, JP, JR. So what you can see there is that they're actually being ORed together. So one option to address that is to search it as a phrase by basically putting quotes around the terms. So I think the important thing to understand here is that we're using this thing called KQL, which is basically a Kibana query language. And if you click here, you can go to a link which provides an explanation of how to do various Kibana queries. But yeah, it's its own language. You can change to the Lucene language, which we will later, to provide some functions that are not provided in KSQL. But yeah, so I think the key thing to understand is that by default, KSQL will OR your criteria together. So you can, so if you do J and K, then obviously those criteria are ANDed together and we're getting what we expect there. There is a really nice sort of autocomplete functionality. So if we go book and colon and wild, we'll get books which have the word wild in them, which is really good. So as we sort of mentioned earlier, we can do, if we do a search for Stephen Hawking's, that'll by default get Stephen Hawking's, but also Stephen's. Those characteristics are ORed together. We put double quotes around them, it'll do a phrase search. So for Stephen Hawking's, the alternative is to do an AND, Stephen and Hawking's, and we'll get that same result back. So it is possible to do Boolean operators. So what we're doing here is we're searching for year first published, and the book is The Alchemist. Probably just do Alchemist. I don't think it's a very used word. So if you do OR, you'll get multiple books back. So it's just pretty basic there. You can do range searches. So let's grab this one. So it's a book's published within that range. So yeah, that's basically the functionality of KSQL. There's some functionality within Lucene, so you can see how it's changed to Lucene now, which isn't available within KSQL, so particularly around fuzzy matching and phrase matching. So the first one is you can do sort of misspelled words, so this is like edit distance. So woman, or it'll hit woman, even if the edit distance of, so that won't hit, but if I do an edit distance of 2, it will hit, but that's hitting more things. So you can do some fuzziness with edit distance matching. Similarly, you can do fuzzy phrase matches. So you'll see here, if you search for the phrase the woman, you wouldn't find the total woman. But if you search for the phrase with a distance of 1, it allows that additional word to be present and get a hit. So that's Lucene matching. It's basically got different features than KSQL. KSQL has a really good functionality around nested searching, which Lucene doesn't have. So each have their strengths and weaknesses. So yeah, so you saw that we've got sort of 2 options there. So Lucene and KSQL for searching. Furthermore, we also have the ability to do basically more native DSL queries. So if we do add filter and say so we need to get rid of this. So yeah, sorry, it didn't work exactly as I expected. So we go author. I should just get an author here. So Agatha Christie. So go add filter, author is Agatha Christie, and save. That's gone and done a search, but different to the Lucene and KSQL queries that we're running, this is actually running a Elastic DSL query. So if we go in here and we go edit, and then we can look at the query, you can see that this is the query that's actually run. You can make changes to that directly, but this is like a different way to basically format your queries. So the nice thing about this is that you can, if you click here, you can reverse them. So you can disable or you can exclude them. So not Agatha Christie or only Agatha Christie. But yeah, I guess the interesting thing there is that you can use the Elastic DSL, which is far more powerful than KSQL and the Lucene-based searches within the text box. And you can have many filters and you can build them up over time. So I think we've covered the basics. One last part of this Discover tab is this inspect component. So if we just get rid of this for now, and we do a search for there'll be plenty of hits there, and we hit inspect, we can see the requests that were sent to Elasticsearch. So that there'll be 2 requests, one to get this total hits figure. This is the payload that was sent from Kibana to Elasticsearch to get that information, and to get the documents, this was the payload that was sent to Elasticsearch. You can see the, where is it? Here, the query of which came from here. That was what was sent to Elasticsearch. And then you can also see the response. So you can see the response to the total hits, which is a very small response, which just had the 86 documents, which was just displayed here. And then in the documents response, you can actually see the actual content of the documents that were displayed below. So that's the inspect tab. So that gives you a bit of an understanding about what's happening here, is that, we've got Kibana, it's sort of simplifying things with its interface here, and it's KSQL, or if we're using Lucene, and then it's submitting those requests to Elasticsearch, and it's doing multiple requests and getting the information back we need and presenting it here. So that's the first lesson. I hope that's useful. Cheers, bye.